In the last lecture, we added functionality for adding and removing products to our internal model of the data, our vector, as well as the view that the user sees in the GUI, namely the list widget. In this lecture, we will continue implementing functionality for our store inventory application. Specifically, we will add functionality to show the product information when a user clicks on an element in the list widget, as well as updating selected products. In order to show the appropriate information for the elements as they are selected, we take advantage of the fact that the list widget in the UI and QVector holding the list pointers are in the form of parallel arrays or parallel vectors, in that the indices in the list widget corresponds to the same indices in the vector. So, while the list widget can display just the name, we can use the information in the vector at the same index to show the appropriate information. So let's get started on this. First, in mainWindow.h, we need to make a little bit of a modification here. So we're going to add, at the end, handle item click. And we actually have the potential for passing in arguments here. Since this is a click event, we can call it with this and a QList widget item. It will automatically be passed in, a pointer to one. Now it doesn't know what that is, so I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, and it'll say, hey, do you want to include one of these? And I know it's this right here, include QList widget item. There we go. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over to the CPP file that corresponds to this after I save it. There it is. And first, I'm going to set up the handle item click at the bottom. I'm going to handle item click QList widget item pointer. And that we'll just call that item, I guess, kind of like we did before. And then I'm going to go up here and connect them. So right here, I'm going to say connect UI list products, and we'll make this QList widget item clicked event, which is built in. Main, oops, that should be an ampersand. Main window, handle item click. There we go. So now it's connected, it's wired in. Now I'm going to go down here and implement this method. So notice that while we could use the UI list products current row like we had before, I wanted to show you this alternative where a pointer to the currently selected item is passed in as an argument. So now you have another way of working with the item clicking and the widget. So many different event handlers, also known as the slots, allow you to do this type of parameter passing. So inside of here, I actually want to give this scope here. Almost forgot. Don't want to do that again. That's the end of handle item click. There we go. Now in here, I'm going to say int index equals item, get the containing list widget, and then grab current row. Okay, so I'm basing that entirely off of the item that's passed in automatically by the system. If the index is not equal to -1, because if it is -1, we know that that means that nothing was selected. There's nothing valid selected. But if it's not -1, we know that something valid was selected. So I'm going to grab this. I'll say item, current item, equals product list dot at index. So I'm grabbing the corresponding item from the item that was in the list. And as long as the current item is not equal to the null pointer, scroll up here and enter if, we'll do this. So I'll say label product name. I'm going to set the text for the current item's name. So that should do that. Then I will set the quantity. This is all in the main window, right? And since this is a number inside of the actual item object, we have to convert it to convert it from a number to a string. So I'm going to do this, QString, and then number. And then the argument to that is going to be current items get quantity. All right. UI. Now we're, oh, I guess we got to do this first. Q pixmap. Pixmap is equal to, or rather, I guess I'm not making a pointer, so we're just going to do it this way. So I'm going to say current items get image file path. So I'm making the pixmap based on that. And I'm going to do this, label image, set the pixmap to the pixmap. And then, right, we have to scale it. So I'm going to say set scaled contents to true. And there we go. All right, let's give this a run and test it out. So I'm going to build it and make sure it builds properly. And then we are going to, oops, we'll just start regular. So build, run, and let's see what happens. New product, so we'll say fudge, and we'll do apple. I'm going to say 5, and we'll go with the image we already have, confirm add, and then when I click on them, you can see that it does in fact update the information for the one that I'm actually clicking on. Pretty cool, huh? Just to show we're not pulling anything on you, we'll go to new product. I'll call this bread. I'll say I need 6 loaves of bread, and I will load the image, which we don't have yet. It should be near the top. And in resources, there we go, images, and then my little bread. I'll do confirm. If I click on it, we've got bread here, nothing for fudge, apples there, bread is here. Pretty cool. So now that we have that done, let's move on to allowing the user to update items that have already been added. Currently, the user could remove an item and then add it back with different information. However, that's tedious. So update functionality is something that is desirable in many applications like this. For this, we'll need to set up main window to launch an update item dialog, and also need to add code to the update item dialog to handle the interaction and changes. The major difference between the updating and adding functionality is that with the adding functionality, we just passed in a null pointer, the item pointer, and let the add dialog create and populate the data and then pass it back. But with the update item dialog, we need to pass in a pointer to an already populated item object from the vector and allow the dialog to modify that item. Then, upon confirmation, the item will be changed in the QVector of the main window as well as the list item of the user interface. So, inside of mainwindow.h, we're going to go back there, and we're going to, since it's a menu option that launches it, menu item edit, right there, handle menu item edit, and I will copy that, and we will move over to the mainwindow.cpp. At the top, I'm going to need to include update item dialog.h, and I don't think we're using QMessageBox yet, so we'll have that ready in case we want that. And then at the bottom here, I will get this ready. So we'll put that there. Good, good, good. Oh, I guess we want to connect it first, right? So connect UI, menu edit selected product. There we go. And we're going to put Q action, just like we had before. The triggered action, this. Main window handle menu item edit. So far, so good. And now, of course, we need to go down here and fill in the code for that. All right. So for this one, we're going to also grab the index just like we did before. So int index equals UI products current row. So that gives me the index. And again, if the index is not equal to -1, that's the end of if, we're going to then grab the item at that location. So item, current item, equals product list dot at the index, and that current item is now pointing to the same object that is contained, or rather pointed to, the pointer is contained, in the vector at this particular index. So they both point to the same exact object in memory. And as long as the current item is not equal to null pointer, inner if, same thing. So it's very similar to before. We will have update item dialog right here. Update item dialog, and we're going to pass it in current item and null pointer. Now you'll notice there's an error right off the bat. That's because we have not updated or modified the update item dialog yet. Okay. Now I'm going to do update item dialog.exec to get it ready. And then I'm going to prepare, so make sure UI is updated, right? So we're going to do UI's label product name, Very finicky today. Okay, label product name, set text, and we're going to put current item, get name, good for that. Quantity, we're going to set the text, and again, based on the number, Q string, number, and current items get quantity. And then Q pixmap. Pixmap, we're going to have that set to current items get image file path right there. And then the UI's label image set pixmap based on pixmap, like that. LBL image set scaled contents to true, because we want to make sure it doesn't look squished, right? But now we need to modify the update item dialog codes that we created earlier. So yeah, this still has an error, but it will be updated in just a moment. So we're going to go into the update item dialog.h file. So we'll go over here, update item.h. We do need to include item.h so it knows what that is to begin with. And we need to modify the constructor. So we've already got the parent set here, but we need to put item pointer current item. And we'll also put a couple things here. So void confirm update. So when the person says I'm done, and then load item image right there. And then of course, we're going to in here put item star current item. So we'll keep track of which item are we modifying in this particular update menu. And Q string image file path. This is if the file path is manipulated, we need to modify that pointer. Now the reason it's not passed in by reference for this one is we're not creating a brand new one or pointing to a new object. We're keeping the same memory address that was passed into us, but we're modifying the components inside of that. So let's go to the update item dialog.cpp rather, and at the top of this one's also complaining for the moment because we just updated it. Q file dialog. Have that for our images. Q message box, in case we need that. And then right here, we're going to put item current item, right? So that's why, again, don't need double pointer or reference or anything like that. We're just modifying the original element. Okay, so after the setup for the UI, we're going to put this current item equals current item that was passed in. So that means that our reference we just created in the .h file in the private field, as a private field, is now pointing to the same object. So basically the whole point to this parameter here is when it's passed in as an argument, or when the argument's passed in, we can take the same address and hold it inside of this class as long as we're working on it. So it's basically just a handoff. The parameter's just acting as kind of the middleman to pass information from the main window to the update item dialog. All right, so once we've done that, we need to fill in some default information here. This is all in the constructor, as you can see. So if current item is not null pointer, for whatever reason we get here and it's null pointer, we don't want that. So the label item name, set text, we're going to put the current items get name. So that label does not allow you to edit the name. So that's the one thing they can't edit. A QPixMap, and so QPixMap, PixMap, current item, get image file path, and we want to say UI LBL image and set PixMap to PixMap. Okay, and now UI SB quantity, current item, get quantity. If you noticed, there is a little tiny thing I skipped while we're working on this, and that was on purpose, so don't say anything in the comments. We'll be needing that little bit of information later. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Image file path, we will get to it. Current item, get image file path. So we need all this default information. And then, of course, we probably want to connect to our different methods here. So update item dialog. Let me actually give this a few more spaces, of course. Item dialog. And we're going to do confirm update. That one. So end confirm update. And then I want to also give the stub for the load item image. So end load item image right there. We're going to go up into the constructor again. And in the constructor, we need to do the connection. So this is the connections. Connect the button confirm edit. Q push button clicked event. We're going to do update item dialog confirm update. So far so good. Now connect the btn load image. Q push button clicked event. And then this would be load item image right there. So far so good. And now we have to actually fill in some of the data. So let's actually let's do confirm update first, I guess. So we're assuming all the information is here. We'll say int quantity equals UI SB quantity value, not validate, value. And we're going to say as long as the quantity is greater than or equal to 1, we're going to modify the data. Current item set quantity to that quantity that was changed. And current item set image file path right there. And we're going to actually allow, we'll just close this. So notice we're not modifying it until we are sure that the user has hit the confirm. So we don't actually modify the actual item that was passed in yet. Now here, if the quantity was not somehow greater than or equal to 1, this should probably never reach this code, but just in case, mb set, oh, sure, that should be, shoot, there we go, okay. Message box set text, quantity must be at least 1. So message, not message box. That's what the problem was. mb.exec. There we go. So far, so good. And now load item image. Okay, so this is for load item image. This should be pretty straightforward and pretty familiar. So we're going to say file name equals Q file dialog get open file name. I'm going to pass it this as its parent, and then open image starting in current directory, image files, and then it should say star.png, comma, star.jpg, for example. I could actually put that on a third line, make it a little cleaner. And now if the file name is not equal to empty string, we know that if it was, that would mean that they hit cancel. So we're going to grab the short name of the file. So this is what we kind of did earlier. Last slash equals file name dot last index of, the last slash that I can find, right? That's what we do with the initial. This is very similar. We could actually break this out into a little library to help us, but for right now, we're just doing just fine. We're getting the, returning the n rightmost characters, like we did earlier. Filename.size minus last slash, rather, minus 1. And now we need to copy from the original location, just like we did before. Q file, copy, file name into our local images folder. Images, and it should actually have a slash in it. And then it should have short name right there. So that gives the whole file path right there. And now we test and load it into memory. Pixmap, images slash short name. So that thing we just copied over, we are now making the pixmap based on that. Then setting the label. So we've got label image, set pixmap to the pixmap, and then label image, set scaled contents to true, and then update internal data. So now the internal data of this class, the update item dialog class, image file path is equal to images slash, and then short name, same thing. Good. Okay, so let's run it. One thing that we need to do is correct a little tiny bug I see here. So the little bug is right here. We need to get rid of that comma, just put a space, and put the close parenthesis. There's actually a close parenthesis in the string. So that does actually control what kind of files this will see when we load it. So let's do that, and we're going to build it. And we're going to run it. And let's try apple, and we're going to put maybe 5 apples confirmed, but with no image. And we're going to maybe add another one. Maybe we'll do bread, 2 loaves of bread. And then for apple, I'm going to edit and load item image. Looks like we need to do some editing to this a little bit. And then in images, you'll see that it does show the apple and bread. If you don't see the images, that means there may be a problem with how you specified the image types. So I'm going to do apple for that, confirm edit. And this does indeed hold the data for apple now when we click on it. Bread, same thing. Load item, and let's change it to 20 loaves of bread. Confirm. There we go. We've got the bread and the apple. Everything looks pretty darn good to me. We'll close that. And that looks like everything's pretty good. Let's launch again, retest it one more time, just to be sure. Let's do apple, and we'll load the apple image right here, confirm add, and let's go back to edit it. Now that's weird. This is a scaling issue. It seems like something's wrong with that. Well, that's just when it launches though. Well, you know what? maybe there'll be a challenge later about that. Okay, let's close that. Looks pretty good. So the one glaring issue, again, that we just saw as we launch the update item dialog from the main window is the image, assuming the product has an image associated with it, isn't scaled correctly. So I've got a challenge for you. How do we fix that? I want you to modify the code appropriately to fix this scaling issue when the update item dialog first launches. As a hint, you can see how the load item image works when it has its corresponding button clicked. But remember, our problem is on the initial launch of the update item dialog. So pause the video and give this one a go. Come back when you're done, or if you need some help. How did that work for you? Were you able to fix the scaling issue? Let's fix it together. If you had figured it out, you may have noticed the fix is really quite simple. It's literally one line of code. And we just have to add that to the update item dialog.cpp file, in fact. So let's add that and then retest it. So right inside of the update item dialog constructor, if we scroll up a little bit here, you'll notice that I didn't scale it when I set the pixmap. We'll set the scaled contents to true. And of course, let's run it again and just make sure this works. So build and run. And let's see. New product. We'll put Apple. No image this time. Yeah, you know what? Let's load that. Right here, confirm add. And then edit. You'll notice it's scaled. Everything's good. Do the same thing with bread. I'll add bread initially with 10 loaves. No image. And then I'll edit the bread. Load it. And we're going to go to the bread image. Confirm edit. And if I reopen edit, it is scaled properly. Nice. This looks like our scaling issue is fixed. This should highlight the importance of testing your software as you write it. You can reveal little mistakes and errors that you hadn't noticed before, and this allows you to correct them. It's important to note that narrowing down where the problem is occurring is crucial as well. By realizing that the load item image method was working just fine, as well as scaling the contents correctly, we then figured out that the scaling issue wasn't happening all the time, only when the update item dialog was first launched. So that's a big clue that some sort of initialization method, such as the constructor, in our case, might be the culprit. It's truly amazing the difference a single line of code makes, right? So what is left to do with this app? So you've probably noticed that every time we relaunch the full application, our list of items is missing. I mean, how could you not notice? It's a glaring issue and we keep having to retype stuff. And that's a little bit annoying. Persisting our data, that is making it last beyond the life of a particular launch of the program, is very important. And that's why in the next lecture, we will be storing the data that we need in a file and loading that data from file in order to make the application work seamlessly between launches. I look forward to adding save and load functionality to our app. I'll see you in the next lecture.